Hey, to all you Husker fans out there, good morning on this Saturday. We're less than 2 weeks away from the Nebraska football season, and we're back here on the Husker Big Red YouTube channel and our social channels here, Facebook and Twitter, trying to talk some Nebraska football here with you Nebraska fans. So, Danny, how are you doing on this Saturday morning? We're now 12 days away from the start of the Nebraska football season.
12 days away. Can you believe it? I certainly can't. And I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Just trying to follow all the practice updates and, just excited about what's to come. And like I always say, every single show, I have optimism and, I'm very excited about this season. I mean, there's tons of things to be excited about. So let's get into it, I guess.
Yeah, so we don't really have too much on the agenda. Just wanted to talk about some things that we've learned so far in fall camp. So if any of you, people on the stream or watching us on Facebook or Twitter, have any questions or comments, feel free to throw them in there. I'll be hanging out here for about 30 minutes. So we'll be doing this again every Saturday. We probably should have done a better job of telling people we were going to do this one, but at any rate. We're always excited to talk some Nebraska football, and like you said, just been kind of following with fall camp, the past couple of weeks, and I guess just from this past week, I suppose, what are some things that kind of stood out to you from Nebraska football fall camp?
Well, the fact that, um, you know, it seems like Tony White feels as though, some players are progressing along at a high level. He talked a lot about the defensive line. Raquan Buckley is a name that's been consistently mentioned. The Polar Bear is also a name that has been brought up a couple times. And so it seems like, you know, White and, Terrence Knighton will be able to, really have a lot to work with. And, White talked yesterday about how Jeff Sims has progressed from the first time White saw the quarterback in 2020 to now. And, he said that basically he's turned into a leader. He's turned into you know, somebody that's hard to defend against. And whether or not that's a good thing for the defense or it speaks more to Jeff Sims' capabilities, we'll have to wait and see. But I like the fact that another position coach is kind of recognizing, um, what Sims brings to the table. Because, offensive coaches can talk about Sims all they want, but it's always helpful to have another set of eyes, perhaps out of your positional group, I guess, or positional side of the football.
Yeah, and it was interesting. Yeah, you mentioned like Raquan Buckley. He's a guy that could really, step up this year. Blaze Gunnerson is going to be on the defensive line. So we'll see how those guys kind of, fit into this new system. But I do think, yeah, the Polar Bear, got the single digit this week, which was well deserved. I think he's going to have a really big season, honestly, playing up front. I think he's going to be that nose tackle and defensive end type. I think that him and Ty Robinson are probably both going to see time at those positions. And like I've said a bunch, I feel like there's going to be a lot of two defensive linemen and either four linebackers, or we're going to see, the edge rushers, with Lenhart and Prince William Mamalian, who were named preseason All-American by 24/7 Sports this week. So there's some nice options in the front seven with this defense. And I feel like there's a lot of there's a lot of different things that Tony White can do with those pieces in the front seven.
Absolutely. And, you know, Francois Umamalin and Kim Lenhart earned freshman All American honors, and I know you wrote about that, but it just speaks to, we've kind of talked about them a lot as players that can step up and make an impact right away, and it kind of speaks to that. And like you wrote in your article, it also speaks to the way that the coaches can identify talent and recruit. Obviously, we have to wait to see things on the field, but hey, two true freshman preseason All Americans, I'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah, and at really important positions too. You talk about defensive line, and those guys are going to be needed. I don't think that they're going to start because I think they're going to be, sub package type players. But Nebraska, I mean, make no mistake about it. Like this team is going to be playing in sub packages more than 50% of the time. Like the 3-3-5 defense, like that's not the alignment we're going to see the
Yeah.
majority amount of time. And that's just, I mean, that's with any team. In most defenses, whether you're in, college or the NFL, you're playing most of your defense in a nickel or dime package because there's so much prevalence of 3, 4 wide receivers anymore nowadays.
And just the 3-3-5 as a formation as a whole, I feel like obviously you can adjust your defense and stuff, but I feel like that particular style of defense gives you a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, it really does because you look at your linebackers. I mean, you can have MJ Sherman walk up and be if you do have three defensive linemen, you can have him kind of be a fourth as like an edge, or you can there's just a lot
Right.
of different things that you can do. You can have that linebacker be an extra coverage guy. I mean, heck, you could even have it wouldn't surprise me if like they used Eric Fields. I know he's playing Rover right now, but it wouldn't surprise me if he was like, in third downs or passing situations, he came in for say like a Nick Heinrich or, just to add some more speed at that position. So there's just a lot of different things that you can do. And I feel like that's going to be a big positive, for Nebraska with this defense. And that's, one of the reasons I think this team's going to get to a bowl game is I think this defense is going to be the best one that we've seen from Nebraska in a long time since probably the Bo Pelini days.
And I love the fact that a lot of these freshmen, Ethan Nation, Eric Fields, on the defensive side of the football especially, I love that they're getting talked about early because, part of the problem with the last staff, and I'm not going to get into a tangent on the last staff, but I feel they didn't develop, freshmen at a high level and they wasted talents. Now we're seeing freshmen, very much in the mix. Ethan Nation is a guy I'm really excited about, and Jeff Sims gave praise to him earlier this week. And Eric Fields, my feelings on Eric Fields. I'm fired up for Eric Fields, but it's great to see these freshmen. They're not just gonna sit on the bench and bide their time. They're ready to make maybe not a sizable impact, but they're making their presence known right now.
Yeah, the Ethan Nation, kind of the progress he's made, I think is really important. Just because Nebraska is a little thin at that cornerback position, just in terms of like veterans. There's not, after like Tommy Hill, there's a little bit of a drop off, and
Yep.
he kind of reminds me of Malcolm Hartzog, a guy
Yeah.
that's a 3-star recruit, very similar in size, but someone who made a lot of plays. He was getting interest from SEC schools, and then it kind of fell off. And I have to think that it's a lot of it with, these 5'10" or whatever. But, if the guy can make plays, I mean, we saw that's not an issue for Malcolm Hartzog last season. And if he could make a similar, I'm not, that's, 3 interceptions or whatever, but even that's a big, expectation. But even if he can just play solidly like Hartzog did last year and give him another cornerback option, that would be huge, I think, for the secondary.
He doesn't even have to necessarily be, you know, the best coverer, I feel like, in this defense. He just has to be able to make plays, like come down and make plays, use that speed to maybe even, cover a slot receiver or something like that. So, we talked about just a couple minutes ago the flexibility that this defense provides. I feel like Nation will definitely be able to make an impact with, his speed, and his instincts are really impressive too. So I feel like there's a lot of ways for him to contribute on this defense fairly early.
And I think there's been a lot of positives too from Luke Reimer, Heinrich, who I mentioned before. I think he's played really well. Deshaun Singleton, I think, has been trying to make a push in the secondary. Omar Brown. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are stepping forward and that are veteran type players. I mean, Reimer and Heinrich have played a lot. Isaac Gifford has played a lot. You know what I mean? So Marcus Buford, whenever he comes back, so there's a lot of experience on this team, especially with Hutchmaker and Robinson. I mean, I guess, one thing I do have to say, which I mentioned in one of my articles this week, Phil Steele put out, his preseason All Big Ten team, and Nebraska didn't have a single player on the first or second team. And that, I mean, when you look at that, and I know that's just one team and they're not all like that, but that's a worrisome sign. I mean, because that Nebraska's got to start getting more of those guys, on those lists, and hopefully that will start happening. But that does leave me slightly concerned, like going into this 2023 season.
Hey, as long as they fit the scheme and ball out when on game day comes, I don't care if they make zero all Phil Steele teams or Phil Steele freshman team. Because quite honestly, we've had players that have made these preseason All American teams and they've done squat. So just play good on the field. I mean, if we go 4 or 5 years without a player on one of those teams, then maybe I'd be a little bit concerned. But at this point, I just want to see results, and I feel like a lot of fans feel the same way.
Yeah, I just mean, looking
I get
back,
what you're saying for sure.
yeah, it
Yeah.
just to me, it's like maybe I don't know. I'm like maybe this team doesn't have as much talent, as I'm thinking it does, or it could just be that people are underrating this team too. You know what I mean? But
I
I'm
feel
trying to.
like go ahead.
Well, I'm just, there's nobody that I can really say like, oh, this person deserves, that this person got snubbed or whatever. But I just feel like, but at the same time, I feel like that Thomas Fedoni, if he's healthy this year, is definitely has a good shot of being like a, first or second team All Big Ten. I think Jeff Sims has a shot to be,
Yeah.
maybe not first or second team, but like third team. I mean, the Big Ten's got some really talented players. So the one guy I think that was a second or third team guy. Bryce Benhurt was one of the top guys on the list. So, I mean, that's another interesting thing, I think.
Well, a couple points on that. One, Matt Rule's been singing Bryce Benhart's praises for quite a while now, so maybe there is something there that just wasn't coached. And secondly, I feel like a lot of people really don't know what this Nebraska team is going to bring to the table due to the huge turnover. Obviously, with the new coach and the coaching staff and things like that, I feel like everybody, and I know I've talked about this before with recruiting, once everybody knows what everything's going to look like, then maybe you'll see some postseason accolades for the program and things like that. But I feel like it's a big waiting game for this program right now, but it's a positive waiting game, not a dreaded waiting game like we're accustomed to having.
Yeah, and we're getting, like we've said, we're getting really close here to this Minnesota game. I'm wondering if Matt Rule's like actually going to put out a depth chart. Some coaches do that. If he's going to announce some of those, if we're going to know the kind of all those starters, before that game. But I think we're starting to get an idea. I mean, one of the biggest position battles was left tackle. And I think it's pretty clear right now that Turner Corcoran's going to be starting that first game. I mean, when Teddy gets healthy, I think he'll be in the mix there. But at least to start, it doesn't seem, he's still in the yellow jersey. So I mean, there's definitely something that's causing him to, miss some time here. And that's unfortunate. But hopefully Turner Corcoran can deliver and play better than he did last year.
Don't rush Teddy back. That's what they did last year, and that really messed him up, I think. So, in a way, although I hate to see him injured, obviously, I'm glad that they're being cautious with him.
Yeah, Matt Rule even said, I'd rather bring him back a week too late than a week too early. So I think that's kind
Yeah,
of reading between the lines. I just don't see them trying to rush Teddy back for
yeah,
that game, and that's not helping him or the team because they did
no,
put him out there last year because he was their best pass blocker and he wasn't 100%, and it hurt the offense and it hurt him. So
yeah.
I like that they're taking the path that they're taking because there is some other guys, and like I've said before, I feel confident in Gunnar. I don't know why. I feel like if Gunnar Gatula has to go out there and play, like I feel like he'll do a good, not a great job, but I feel like he's a good enough player and he's just tough and he'll just figure out a way to get between himself get himself between his guy and the quarterback. You know what I mean?
He's gonna learn if he's not solid yet. He's gonna learn. But no, I think it goes back to again another chance for a freshman to step up, another chance for a freshman to develop. And, this is a guy that was a 3-year starting lineman for Lincoln Southeast. And so high school football is a lot different than college football. Yes, I know that. But, I mean, he is a solid player. And, although starting freshmen or having freshmen in big roles may not be ideal and it may be a little messy at times. I mean, this is what you need to build a solid program. And, I trust these incoming freshmen, both in the 2023 and 2024 classes, more so than I have, quite frankly, other classes.
Well, sometimes you just and you can look at the rankings, but some guys are just more ready to, it's like in the NFL, sometimes you draft like a sixth round pick and the guy doesn't play like that, right? I mean, and some guys just don't.
Tom Brady.
Yeah, yeah. Some guys just don't play like freshmen. I think Gunnar Gatula is one of those guys that if he's able to play, I think, or if he's kind of forced to play with injuries, I think he'll look beyond his years out there. I'm not saying he's going to be all Big Ten left tackle, but I think he'll be okay if he's forced into action there. And hopefully that we can say the same about, the wide receivers, Malachi Coleman and Jaden Dawson, some of these guys. But Alex Bullock, I think, is really, from everything, we've heard, Thomas Fedoni called him one of the best route runners he's ever seen. A lot of guys have talked about, his ability to, kind of dominate at the high school level. So we'll see if it can carry over here at Nebraska, but him and his brother John Bullock on the defensive side, who's earned a scholarship at linebacker and also was one of the single-digit award winners this week. They're definitely making moves up the depth chart, and it's fun to see that happen. Fun to see guys kind of make their own path.
And also take advantage of the opportunities that they're giving, not just, "Oh, okay, I earned a single digit, la-di-da-di-da." No, they're working hard, they've earned that number for a reason, and, that's something we haven't seen in previous years. Also, just, players trying to work hard and make the most of their opportunity, and I know, I read a lot of your comments, not you, Chris, but anybody watching, and I know it's all, you know, smoke and mirrors to some of you, and we got to wait till the season starts. I understand that, and I get it. But when players and coaches, they're with these guys every day, and when they see, things that they like, I definitely think it means something. I mean, having Thomas Fedoni call you one of the best route runners he's ever seen, I mean, to me, that holds weight because he's played some pretty good football over the years in his own right.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of people, like Sean Callahan, I think has talked about how Alex Bullock was a guy that, used to dominate, when he played in high school football. And look, some guys, I mean, there was a guy on my high school team that, went to the University of Montana as a preferred walk on, and he ended up being a Pro Bowler. And he couldn't even get a scholarship offer from the University of Montana out of high school. And he went to the Pro Bowl with the Tennessee Titans. So, I mean, sometimes you just don't know what guys are going to
Who
develop
is
like.
that?
Mark Mariani is his name.
Okay, yeah, I remember the name. Okay,
Yeah, the old Haver Blue Pony.
yeah,
So, but yeah, I mean that he went there, and I mean that he had a bunch of other scholarship offers and turned them down. Basically like for NIA programs and stuff where he wouldn't have had to pay for anything, but he felt like he could make it, and he did. He proved people wrong, and so it happens all the time, and we've seen that especially at Nebraska. With the walk on traditions and all that type of stuff. So,
Brody
it
Belt comes to mind.
yeah, and just I mean, even over the course of it, I mean, when Osborne was here and Solich, when those guys were winning games, the walk-ons program was a big thing, and I feel like Matt Rule is doing a good job of kind of bringing that back and giving players an opportunity to to prove themselves, and when they do prove themselves, actually putting them on the field instead of a star recruit, that actually matters, and that does help.
And I feel like this program will definitely make that happen. And although it's not the same as the walk-on program, I feel like he's doing that with the freshmen too. If you're Eric Fields and you impress the coaches, you're gonna play. If you're Malachi Coleman and you impress the coaches, yes, I know Malachi was a highly rated prospect or whatever, but you have a chance to play. And I think that's I think that's a good precedent to set, and it encourages players to work hard because I feel like in previous regimes, players maybe worked hard but didn't get any playing time at all. So what's the incentive to work? That's not going to be the case under the Matt Rule regime.
Yeah, I think it is more of a true kind of meritocracy where, he's not, and you shouldn't be. You should be playing the best players regardless of, how they're recruited. It's with drafting, as an NFL team, you can't play somebody just because they were a first round pick and you want to make yourself look smart. You know what I mean? You have to play the best players, and sometimes coaches don't do that. They're like, "Oh, this is the guy I recruited and I want him to be this and that," and they want to be right, instead of, and they
Yeah.
miss what's right in front of their eyes because they can't admit that they're wrong. So, but Matt Rule, I feel like he does have that, and one thing is because he knows that at Carolina things did not go 100% right, so I feel like he's gonna be looking at things more critically and learning from that. And I think those are all positive things.
Yeah, and people rag on him for Carolina all the time. Carolina Panthers fans are in my mentions 24/7, but
Yeah,
you
what's
know,
up with that, man?
yeah,
Let it go, Carolina fans.
I mean, Carolina was bad before Matt Rule got there, so
Yeah.
there is that. I mean, they weren't bad, but they were average. But anyway, I think you know taking that kind of year off and refocusing yourself and kind of just sitting back and slowing down a little bit helps kind of refocus you. And I think Matt Rule is definitely refocused and committed to making Nebraska a winner again.
And yeah, while we're talking a little bit of the NFL, Trey Palmer continues to, kick ass for the Tampa Bay Bucks. So it definitely seems like he's going to have a big role this year. Garrett Nelson kind of coming on, making a push to make the Miami Dolphins. So that's good to see too. Some of those former Huskers making it in the NFL.
Austin Allen, I'm going to see tonight with the
That's
Green
right.
Bay
Yeah.
Packers. I think, yeah. So it'll be interesting to hopefully the Patriots can actually play some offense here and look good. And I'm assuming the starters play tonight because it's 3 games instead of 4 now. So I'm assuming game 2 is the starter game.
Yeah, game two is supposed to be the dress rehearsal game or whatever.
Are
So
you gonna
yeah,
watch tonight?
yeah, I'll definitely watch. See if my boy Jordan Love can put together some solid series of play.
Honestly, he's like pretty good in practice. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Hearing a lot of good things from Patriots practice. But anyway, Austin Allen, as it relates to Nebraska stuff, will be playing for Green Bay tonight. Trey Palmer, nice catch over Sauce Gardner the other day, like a diving catch, or not a diving catch, but a catch over the top. And I tell you what, I mean, I don't know how. I understand he had issues with drops and things like that in college a little bit, but I don't know how he fell so far. I really don't.
But how did Tyreek Hill fall to the fifth round either? It's just people they don't trust the. I'm not sure, but yeah, the Bucks definitely got a steal in Trey Palmer. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see some more Iture playing for the Packers tonight as well, and he's kind of making a push. One thing that'll be interesting on a recruiting perspective is so next Friday, the high school football season starts up here in Montana, and our boy Quinn Clark. I'll be watching Quinn Clark live next Friday, so I'll be able to give you guys some notes on how he's looking in his first senior game of his high school season.
And a Grant Brick's decision is probably coming soon. Am I right or no?
Should be coming soon. Yeah, it's
That's what I
it's
thought.
supposed to be August 25th, which would be next
Oh, Friday.
Friday.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's only I've only seen that reported by I think that was Brian Munson who reported that, and I haven't seen like that confirmed. So I don't. We'll see, man. I feel like I've said all along if Bricks makes his decision this month, I feel like it's Nebraska. But there's just to me, it's weird how there's not been any like expert like picks at this point. It's like he's not going to take any more visits anywhere before if he makes this decision. There's been like one for Nebraska and then one from Kansas State like months ago, and so it's just I'm kind of watching that like when's that movement going to happen, or is this going to be one where there's not very many crystal balls, and there's like two predict because those you do see those sometimes too, and that always makes it a little more interesting.
Yeah, and some kids just want a quiet recruitment. You know what I mean? Like they don't want all the fanfare and the Hayes Fawcett top 125 edits and things like that. And I kind of like that, in my opinion, honestly. I mean, kids should have their moment for sure, but I kind of like no hoopla, just business recruitments.
Yeah, and like Bricks, I know Jay Sean Ross is another that's been, his timeline. Amari Sanders is on this timeline this month too. Caleb Benning. So there's a few different guys. Brandon Baker. I think Nebraska. I've read stuff from Steve Wiltfong and from Chad Simmons this week. Saying that Nebraska's still in the mix for Brandon Baker. Sounds like that Texas really knocked it out of the park when they did their visit. And there's some other big names in there, but it's kind of surprising. I'm not sure exactly how Nebraska's been able to do that since he didn't visit this summer, but it sounds like they at least have a real shot with Brandon Baker at this point.
Yeah, and I think, do you think a Brick's decision either way will affect whether Baker comes? I know we've talked about this before, but I mean, now I'm thinking maybe both. I don't know. I like to me Baker's less of a guarantee, and nothing's guaranteed in recruiting. So I mean,
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, obviously, I think Nebraska's still going to try to push hard for both because, man, if you could get both of those guys to tackle and convince one of them to play right tackle, I mean, you'd be
yes, let's
pretty, you'd
go.
be really set. You'd be really set for the future. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, both guys want to play left tackle, but hey, I mean, playing on the right side isn't necessarily a bad thing either. I'm talking about in terms of their NFL because I think it is going to be hard to say like, hey, you're both going to be the left tackle of the future here. So I don't know if that's like, if they're both determined to play left tackle, then maybe that might not happen. But you never know. I mean, Matt Rule's a great recruiter, and Donovan Raiola, I think, has proven that he's a pretty good recruiter as well this cycle. And so we'll see what happens. But it'll be a good problem. Like if we get Grant Bricks and we're still swinging, for Brandon Baker, like if we don't, that'll just be like the cherry on top, but you've already met the need with Bricks. So that would be a great situation either way for Nebraska.
I mean, to me, Nebraska has shown that they're going to swing at big recruits no matter what they have or the depth they have. So I think they'll still be swinging at Brandon Baker. The question is, will Baker want to commit? And if both Brandon Baker and Grant Bricks commit, Baker can play quarterback as far as I'm concerned. I mean, just get them both here, get them both on the field, and I mean, then we'd be in business. And then you talk about, I know I mentioned his name before, Andrew Babalola. I mean, for 2025. I mean, we're shooting for the stars with some of these linemen here, and I think that's a good precedent as well.
Well, that's when this program was really great. I mean, there were obviously we had great quarterbacks and running backs, but the offense and defensive line is where Nebraska really, did a lot of its work. I mean, the black shirts were always great. I mean, Nebraska's always had great linebackers and secondary, but
Aren't
they
the black
always
shirts coming back? Speaking of which,
yes, I believe the black shirts are coming back, so that'll be interesting to see. When Tony White kind of hands those out, but being able to dominate in the trenches, that's what built Nebraska football into the successful program that it was, and I think Matt Rule has at least taken the right steps to reinvest in that. So I think that's a positive thing going forward.
and he's at least trying to recruit. He's not saying, "Oh, like, we can't get him, so I'm just gonna go drink my margaritas." He's
Yeah.
actually working hard and trying to recruit players, even if Nebraska may be on the outside looking in.
One other thing I guess I was looking at, and I posted on earlier today, the ESPN FPI came out and with their latest projection, and basically it's got Nebraska at 6-6. It's got us with a better than 50% chance to win 6 games and lower than 50% chance to win 6 games. It's only a
Uh,
29% chance against Minnesota. What do you think about that?
that's BS. And quite honestly, so is the bowl projection. Because I don't know, maybe I'm jaded. We've done all of this before. Just play the games. I mean, I think that I 29%. I think that's a little low. I feel like we'll be a little bit better, but again, nobody knows about what this team is going to look like, including us. So once we are able to figure out against Minnesota, what we have, and even against Colorado, then I think we'll have a better opportunity to kind of accurately, and I use that term loosely, assess the rest of the season.
Yeah, and it's no, I mean, I definitely don't think Nebraska has a 29% chance to win it. I feel like that's higher. I don't even know where they calculate that stuff. I mean, 2 years ago, the FPI gave Michigan like a 1.4% chance to win the Big Ten, and they won the Big Ten. So I mean, anything can happen, and I definitely, some of it makes sense, but like I said, I got us at 7-5. I feel good about that
Yeah,
prediction, and 6 wins. I think they're going to get there for sure. That's my hope, anyways.
they got to take care of that September part of this, August and September part of the schedule. Yeah, in my opinion, to have a shot, because I think the rest of the schedule is kind of a little bit difficult from there, but we'll see. I mean, nobody knows. Like I said, nobody knows, and so it all starts on the 31st.
Yeah, and I do think they need to win one of those. They need to win one of the first 2 games against. I feel like if you lose to Colorado and Minnesota, that's really going to put you behind the 8 ball. So that's kind of my, like obviously dream scenario is to win both games,
Yeah.
but if you just, it's like going on the road for the first 2 games of like the best of 7 in baseball or something. You just got to get one, and that's if Nebraska gets one of those 2, I'm going to feel really good about this team going to a bowl game.
Colorado looks like a Pee Wee football team, but I feel like we have a better shot against Minnesota for some reason. I don't know. I just have that feeling.
See, yeah, I think yeah, Minnesota is a veteran team. We are a bit young, but we'll see. I don't know. I feel like Nebraska's gonna be tough in that game. I've said that I think like they'll cover the spread, but lose a close one, like 24-20 or something like that. I think it'll be close, but I think Minnesota will just make a couple more plays to win the game. But we'll see. I definitely think it's a winnable game, though, for sure.
And I feel like we'll run the ball a little bit more, so I think that will help us too. I mean, I don't think it's gonna be high scoring by any means. But I think it's gonna be a tough and physical game again in the trenches. Like all other Nebraska Minnesota games, have been in recent memory.
Yeah, it's to be really exciting. So 12 days away, you guys. Make sure that you're checking out our YouTube channel. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. Like all our videos. Make sure you share our content with the Nebraska fans. We appreciate all of the recent subscribers and everything. We're trying to make sure that we hit 1,000, and we're gonna have some fun content. Kind of coming forward. We'll have another
Oh yeah.
episode, another podcast on Monday, and we'll have some more information about our playbacks where you can watch Nebraska games with the Husker Big Red crew this fall. So we're planning to do that, and just can't wait for the season to start here in
I
less
know.
than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So anyways, thanks everybody for watching and everybody on the watches on the replay. So as always, go Big Red. Have a great weekend, and we'll be back on Monday.
Go Big Red. Thank you, everybody.